So, April, can I start, if I may, by asking you about your backstory when it comes to football? When did you first become involved in the game?
So I've always been involved in it from a really young age. So I was a fan to start. I come from like a football family, like a generational football fan, like old school. So my mum and dad are both Southend fans and have been since they were like 15, 16. So going to football as a family, I've got an older brother. Um, it's always been in and around the family, but it's not something I ever really pursued in terms of like playing. Like I played a bit like grassroots, but um, it wasn't really something I'd done. So um, I used to go to sort of like Southend away games when I was sort of like 17, 18, used to go away games on the train or whatever. And the group of boys were like, oh, why don't we set up a Sunday league team? And they were like, oh, and I was like, yeah, but I can't join in or do anything. And they're like, yes, all right, you can just coach us, or you can be the gaffer or whatever. So I was like, all right, cool, that's fine. And then it sort of just snowballed from there. So I was like 17, 18, in charge of like a men's Sunday league team.
So, from early on, it was coaching rather than playing, which inspired you to be involved, I guess. Then.
Yeah, I think from I enjoyed playing, don't get me wrong, but I think it was quite obvious from the start when there was a coach was doing something or there was a drill. I was always like really inquisitive about why they would do stuff or patterns of play. And then it was a bit like I can't actually do that myself. Like I'm not a good enough player to be able to do it. So it's very much like a walking football mentality. Your brain's fine, but your feet ain't doing what you want them to do.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about why Ensign and that you
Mhm.
involved there first of all, because last Saturday you went out of the FA Vars, losing to Edith and Belvedere on
Yeah.
penalties, but you reached the fourth round, last 32 of the competition, and that was the club's best ever runs. Quite
Yeah.
an achievement. So you must be very proud of the players, I'm guessing.
Yeah, super proud. So this is sort of like my second full season with them. So I joined the back end of a season, and this is my second season with them. So technically my third sort of season. Um, and we got to the round before last year, and I was super proud of them then. So to go one further, and then to take it to penalties, the group we've got there are such a good group. We was really conscious this year about sort of like recruitment and what that would look like instead of going through, you know, I think we had something like 52 players last year. Like it was incredible, like just the turnover. So it was really important that we got a really good group together, a really young group, and just added a bit of quality and experience in sort of key areas. And yeah, I'm super proud and I'm really excited about where the core of the squad can go and where we can take them.
Yeah, it does seem like the team is moving in the right direction because I think you finished 16th in the league last season, and obviously as well as the Vars run this time around, you currently in the mid-table position in the league as well. So it's obviously what you've done in terms of recruitment has paid dividends so far this season. I'm guessing.
Yeah, and I think we're 2 wins away from equaling our record of our points tally last year. So we're ahead of schedule in terms of that. We always said we was really clear in our messaging from the start of the season that it's going to be a journey. You're gonna have to learn a lot. Us about management and players about each other, and there's going to be times where it's going to be tough. You're going to be young. We're going to be inexperienced, but you've got to learn from every experience and every game, and what we ask of them is going to go more and more. And we're really going to ramp it up this season. So the messaging from the start was really clear. We've sectioned, 3 or 4 games off at a time, focused on them. Obviously, as management, we have different targets and players and what things we want to do. But in terms of what we give to the players, it's these are the next 3 games. This is what we want. Can we achieve this? Let's focus on that for now, and then we move on. And I think that's really helped our development as a squad and as a team.
Yeah, and last season you made history when you actually became the youngest, sorry, the first ever female manager in the Essex Senior League. How did that come about?
So I'm in a sort of like a management team of 4. So on paper we have Aaron, who's the gaffer, first team. He is the gaffer. But then the other 3 of us, I sort of like have a role of head coach. We've got Enrico, who's I think on paper assistant manager, but between us, we've always been seen as equals. So Aaron was on holiday for a game, and I'd stepped in previously. So I'd stepped in for the BBC Essex County Cup game against Canby a few weeks prior to that. So he knew he was in sort of like good hands anyway. But it was just sort of on the night, do you want to go down on paper? I mean, it didn't mean anything different to me. I still spoke to the players exactly how I do. I prepped them. I prepped myself exactly the same way. But yeah, it's sort of like media sort of like caught hold of it and was like, oh, it's the first thing ever. Like I was like, I'm just trying to win a game of football here. We conceded in the last minute, unfortunately. But yeah, so whenever Aaron's not there, we just take it amongst ourselves to step into that role and do it between us. It's nice that Aaron trusted me to be able to do that, and you know the messaging's always the same. And yeah, I'm not trying to be a number one in any means at the moment. I'm happy being a head coach. I like to deal with the players I've got, and I'm not looking to build a black book of players to recruit to be a number one somewhere else at the moment. So, but I'm happy being a number two. Yeah, and hopefully maybe something further down the line it might happen. So.
Okay, but do you think we'll start seeing more female managers in coaches in the men's semi-pro and pro game in the near future?
I do still think we're a long way off. I think there's a lot of environments where it's really difficult. You've got to have a thick skin, I think. But on the flip side to that, I think conversations that we've had in our management team in particular and with the players is there's a lot of benefits to having a female in and around the changing room. You know, for conversations, different perspectives, particularly sort of like diluting some situations potentially, where things can get heated and you think like it's really not worth getting you know alpha male to it. It's really not. So I think sometimes you see things from a different perspective. I think particularly when you've got a younger squad like we have, having somebody to talk about on sort of like a different level to talk with, I think sometimes helps. And I think sometimes those conversations can probably be, you know, I'm still tough, I'm still, you know, cutthroat, but I think sometimes I see things from a bit more of an empathetic ear. And I can show that. Whereas I think sometimes when you're the gaffer or you've got to be like, this is my messaging, like he can do the bollocking and I don't really necessarily have to do that all the time. So yeah, but I do think we're still a long way off. I think there's still a lot of, you know, unfortunately I had 2 incidents last year involving the same team, where it got really, you know, quite abusive on the sidelines. So and that was tough to take. Still at this level, you know, I've been coaching in men's environment. I work in the men's professional game, so I've been in football since I was like 16 in some capacity, and you know I'm 34 now, 18 years later, and I'm still having to deal with stuff. Like even on touchlines, up until probably last year, people were shaking my hand thinking I was a physio when I don't have a medical bag, I don't have gloves on. Like they've seen me do a warm up, and they think, oh, she must be an S&C coach or she's an analyst or whatever, and they just don't shake my hand as part of the management team. Like that still happens just because of that bias. Like asking to go to the toilet in a separate space that's not in the changing room because, you know, there's 18 geezers in there. The things they do in those toilets, I do not want to go anywhere near, to be honest. I just want to do a wee and get back in. Do you know what I mean? So I've smelt the things that go on in it. I don't want to share a toilet with
Too
them.
much information.
Yes, I mean? But they can be horrendous environments. Boys are disgusting sometimes. So yeah, but there's still a lot of work to do. But obviously, I'd like for more females to be in the men's game and it not be, oh my God, there's a female. Oh my God, there's a female. Like I'm just coaching. I've got my UEFA badge. I've done my graft the same, if not more, than a lot of my counterparts.
So you've got the right to be there.
Absolutely. And I've worked, you know, I've said yes to everything. I've coached all age groups. I've coached in different countries. I've worked with different players in professional, grassroots, semi-pro. So I've earned my dues. And there's somebody who's, you know, played at step 3, was all right at step 3, and now he's a manager and he thinks he's got the right to be there more than I do. Like, it's just great. Oh, they're the people that are the big funders. People with the budgets.
Sure. Clearly, still a long way to go. You won't remember this because I'm quite a bit older than you, but I remember in the early 1990s there was a TV drama called The Manageress, and it was all about a female football manager in charge of a men's professional club, and people thought that was completely outlandish at the time.
Mm.
They thought the idea was absolutely bonkers. I mean, some progress has been made since those days, but from what you're saying to me now, there's clearly a long way to go still.
Yeah, I think it's more likely to happen like at a higher level. I think if you're in and around the professional game, you're more likely to see female coaches in academy setups, under 21 setups, before you start seeing that trickle down into non-league. I think non-league it can be sort of like a free for all in terms of processes or procedures or just general structures that are there to not protect people, but that are there as sort of like a safety net in what they're doing and trying to do the right thing. But I'm really lucky at White Ensign. There's a young chairman, there's good management staff, good players, and they sort of like they've always got my back around anything, and they're like, you're one of us, the same as they would be with anyone really.
Good. And you coach both male and female players. We'll come on to your involvement with Southend United ladies in a moment. Do you notice any differences between the two groups, though, in terms of the way they approach the game, or is it all pretty similar, really?
I think the level of information is probably different and how they process it.
Okay.
Female players tend to be a lot more inquisitive. So I'll say, like, I need you to play like this or do this in this phase. And they're like, well, why are we doing that? Or how does me in a defensive unit affect the midfield unit? Whereas with my male players, I'll say, I need you to play like this. And they go, okay. They just take it as a given. They just like, this is how we're going to play. And they go, oh, okay. It's not like, well, do you think we should play like this? Or should we have, it's a lot more conversational in the female game, I think.
Okay.
That also probably comes down to levels as well. So like the level that Southend are at the moment are tier 6, which, bottom level is tier 7. So we're very much on the way up, whereas obviously the men's are closer, albeit there's more in the pyramid. So sometimes you probably you have more time in the female game to have those conversations in and around on, in coaching within games happens more, I think, whereas you have more game management in the men's game. So you do all your coaching it at training in the men's game, and then you manage the game. Whereas in the female game, you can probably do a bit of coaching in both.
Okay. And so on to your other role with Southend United ladies, where you were coach. They're having a good season, currently second in the league.
Yeah.
And you had a good cup win at the weekend, didn't you?
Yeah, it was not all smooth sailing. We were 2-0 down at half time.
Yes.
And then we came back in extra time. But prior to that, we hadn't played for 7 weeks. So just through bad weather, bad pitches. Obviously, we've been training, but we hadn't really played. So that was really evident, probably particularly in the first half. It took us a long time to sort of get going. But yeah, the trophies, we'd love to get silverware this year. It's a trophy that we'd won previous.
Yeah.
So to have our name on there twice would be, a real achievement for us this season. That's what we're aiming for.
Okay. And with Southend United having been taken over by the consortium recently, are you hopeful success on the field for the ladies side might bring increased investment on that side of the club?
Yeah, so those conversations have been really positive. So obviously Justin Rees has been in and around the club for a while before it was officially taken over. So one of the first conversations I had with Justin was within days of him sort of being in and around the club. So, I have weekly phone calls with him. He's invested in, giving us kits and make sure we're in the same kit and in the same branding as the team, helping us with facilities and ongoing sort of like plans. We're a big part of what the club will be going forward. So he's really supportive, and we've got 2 or 3 of the consortium members as well that are taking a real active approach to the women's team, which is really nice to see. And it's difficult when there's so much going on in the men's side, and there's a lot going on, even just to have a small part of that conversation where he's even thinking about the women's team is really appreciated. So yeah, I'm really thankful for his time, and I'm really excited about where it can go.
That's brilliant to hear. And so we wish Southend United ladies all the best going forward, and White Ensign as well. April, it's been fantastic having a chat with you today, and I wish you all the best in your coaching career going forward as well.
Thank you so much, John. Appreciate it. Appreciate your
You're
time.
welcome. Cheers.